Well, think of it. This is it. This is the last one that we're going to have to do. And doing 4 of these in one day is a little difficult, but not really, because the love in every one of them has been incredible, just like this. So it makes it a lot easier.
We are all in this together. So, Philadelphia, you ready to do this? Are we ready to vote? Are we ready to win?
Good morning and welcome to Rising. It is Election Day 2024. The long-awaited Day of Destiny is finally here, and I am just as relieved as I think Donald Trump and probably Kamala Harris are that it is over. There's no more to do. We're going to be just waiting for the vote tallies. Trump and Kamala Harris spent their final hours on the campaign trail making closing arguments in the swing states. Trump held a rally in Michigan, a state that he lost to Joe Biden narrowly in 2020. Thousands of enthusiastic supporters packed the Van Andel Arena in downtown Grand Rapids for a rally that didn't end until after 2 in the morning. Trump riled up his supporters, even bringing out conservative personality Megyn Kelly. Let's watch.
Last point. What I don't want, what I don't think you want, is the left's version of masculinity. You see that ad they did about Trump voters trying to encourage women to lie to their husbands so that they could vote for her instead of Trump? That's their version of what marriage looks like. An overbearing husband who bullies his wife into saying she voted one way as opposed to an honest, open relationship. Oh, wait, I'm talking about Kamala and Doug. Okay, sorry. Where was that story?
The Trump clan joined the former president on stage in Michigan. His daughter Ivanka Trump was not there.
Harris delivered her last pitch from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. Lady Gaga performed ahead of the vice president's speech. Here she is speaking from the famous Rocky Stairs. So let's watch.
So, America, it comes down to this. One more day, just one more day in the most consequential election of our lifetime, and the momentum is on our side.
And it could be, according to Nate Silver's final forecast. Harris tops Trump by less than 0.1 of a percentage point. It's the first time she pulled ahead in the famed pollster's forecast since October 16th. Silver writes, quote, "The race is literally closer than a coin flip. Empirically, heads wins 50.5% of the time, more than Harris's 50.015%.
So I want to dig into that. I cite Nate Silver often on this show. That's because I find him to be a very credible person on these issues. So he ran the simulation, I think he said like 80,000 times last night. And yeah, she won just a hair's more than 50% of the time. He was a hair under, but there are actually a couple occurrences in that simulation where they had an exact 269 tie. And we're going to talk a little bit later in the show about our own predictions. Spoiler, my prediction is pretty close to the 269 tie, but we're going to get into that in a little bit.
Spoiler minus.
Yeah, yours, well, we'll definitely talk about your prediction. Anyway, this is a very close election for all intents and purposes. I was reflecting that this is probably the first election since like 2000 when I was in, I think in 2000 I was in the 6th grade, where I didn't know, I didn't have a confidence who was going to be the winner. Obviously, I was wrong in 2016. But at every other election, I thought I knew who was going to win. This one, I really don't. It's crazy.
So my dad, right before we started, he's so funny. He used to text me new words when I was a kid, and I haven't gotten a text from him, a new word, since I could start speaking the English language. And he texted me today. A new word is psephology, which is the study of elections and voting. And so that is what we're doing today. We are psephologizing, I guess. Psephologizing.
Sounds painful.
I mean, this is
and it is.
It is incredibly painful. We're going to be doing it all night. It's going to be a blast.
Yes.
The things that I'm watching, as I'm sure you are too, is just, is this going to be record turnout? Is it going to be record turnout compared to 2020? In 2020, we had 100 million early votes cast. As of yesterday afternoon, we were at 79 million early votes cast. We're seeing the numbers with women doubling in many states to men, which has never happened. And women do turn out more than men do, and especially as they get older. But the men that are over the age of 50, as we discussed yesterday, are leaning more towards Harris right now. So I actually think it's not going to be as close as predicted. I think the pollsters have over-adjusted based on 2016, which was 8 years ago. Demographics have shifted. We'll talk more about our predictions later.
Well, let's save that. So right now, I think both campaigns can point to things they have going for them. The Democrats can say, I mean, they have wildly improved on their chances since Joe Biden was the candidate. Kamala Harris has run, given the constraints, given the last-minute nature of it, she's running. You can't say she's running a terrible campaign. She's improved the Democrats' chances of winning by like 30%. She benefits from a lot of favorable media coverage. She hasn't had, while I don't think she's the most effective communicator and is not particularly precise on policy, she's clearly better able to get through an answer than Joe Biden is, and she has correctly repudiated many of her unpopular stances from the last time she sought the presidency, and she hasn't done that she has done it in a flip-flopping way, I would argue, but that's not evident to people because she's kind of just released press releases saying we're no longer standing by this environmental mandate or decriminalizing the border, whatever, all that stuff. So that's the good stuff the Democrats have going for them. On the Republican side, they are running against the incumbent. She's part of the incumbent administration at a time where incumbents worldwide are suffering. They are unpopular. There's a conservative rising tide on immigration and the economy that is being felt globally, not just in the U.S., and Trump, that plays to his strengths on the things he's running. So there's a lot going for them. And then they both have the negative of, again, Kamala Harris has not proven herself in the electoral arena. She's not a ground-up candidate. She's a top-down candidate. And on the other side, Donald Trump has very, very passionate supporters and has more control of the Republican Party than ever. But he still has a lot of the electorate that hates his guts and are not going to change their mind about him. And we'll see if he can make enough inroads among these voters he's trying to, Latino, black men, etc., less likely voters. Not kind of the voters you want to have to rely on. You want to rely on suburban elite voters who are showing up every election after every election. Those are the ones he's lost. But if he's gained more, or they're people who are just frustrated by the economic situation, that's what we're going to find out.
I think this is really a vibe year. I know that people make fun of vibes, but having worked on, at this point, four presidential races, I can tell you that the ones that have the vibes, that's energy, that's excitement. I mean, there's a big joke about whether or not signs on this, your lawn signs, your yard signs work or not, but it often shows passion. And I think that's something in this data-focused world, a lot of politicians and campaigns have over-relied on data, and that's actually how we got into 2016 was, they missed the mark not only on opening up offices in places like Wisconsin, but also taking vibes for granted. And I will say that Kamala Harris has really taken hold of that. She has a lot of the same team from 2016, which is surprising, but I think that they've learned their lessons. And to be able to do that in 3 months, every campaign is going to have mistakes. Every campaign is going to have flip-flopping, and they're going to say the wrong things, and the media is going to go after them, and there's going to be all sorts of crises that happen on campaigns. But the unforced errors are obviously what you need to be concerned about, and I think they've had a really good grasp of not, basically putting her foot in her mouth, like the event at MSG. And I think the MSG event is really going to be the turn for this election.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but we will find out. We've got lots more to talk about on the show today, including our predictions, our electoral maps. We made them for accountability and or gloating and or later humiliation. Stay tuned.
I made mine 4 minutes ago, guys. 4 minutes ago.
We'll talk about it. Stay with us.
Elon Musk. He saved free speech. He created so many different great things. Where is he? Come on up here, Elon. He created the first major American car company in generations, and his rocket company is the only reason we can now send American astronauts into space. Come here.
History of the United States of America, Elon Musk. Text people now. Now. Oh, and then make sure they actually do vote. If they don't, this will be the last election.
Billionaire Elon Musk has changed the landscape of American politics, mounting a campaign operation in just a matter of months. If Donald Trump wins, Elon Musk could have a role, either formal or informal, in the new administration. He has frequently been mentioned as the potential head of a department to eliminate government waste. There's even been speculation that former Representative Ron Paul, a beloved figure among libertarians like myself, could join him. Musk tweeted that it would be great to have Ron Paul as part of the Department of Government Efficiency. In his response, Ron Paul said the Department of Government Efficiency sounded almost paradoxical, but that he'd be happy to help. Let's watch.
You said Elon cutting $2 trillion from the budget? Great idea. Start with some of the biggest welfare recipients. Military-industrial complex, pharmaceutical-industrial complex. Oh, and end the Fed. To which, to both of our surprises, Elon Musk, the man himself, responded, click that next one, needs to be done.
Elon Musk, the tech tycoon and serial entrepreneur, has become steadily more involved in the Trump campaign since July. He began appearing on the trail with Donald Trump at the Butler July 13th rally, the now infamous site of the first assassination attempt on Trump. He threw his support behind the former president, posting on X, which he bought in 2022, quote, "I fully endorse President Trump and hope for his rapid recovery."
July 13th was a pivotal moment for Musk and for the Trump movement as the tech billionaire quickly rose to be one of his biggest financial backers and digital backers. Since coming on the political scene, Musk has supplied a steady stream of pro-Trump messages to his 203 million X followers, like this one he posted in October, quote, "Trump will save democracy and America. Mark my words, Kamala Harris would be a disaster," or this one just yesterday in which he said, quote, "Vote for Donald Trump or the Dems will legalize so many illegals in swing states that this will be the last real election in America." Per the Center for Countering Digital Hate, his posts have racked up more than 2 billion views this year.
Musk has certainly put his money where his mouth is. According to the latest Federal Election Commission's filings, he's funneled more than $118 million to his pro-Trump Political Action Committee, America PAC. Most recently, he even set up a lottery of sorts, giving away millions of dollars to pre-selected recipients who agreed to register to vote. Through Pennsylvania's District Attorney Larry Krasner challenged the move. Judge Angelo Foglietta upheld it.
Trump has been leading with the mail vote, a voting bloc that has only solidified with the Musk endorsement. There's also been talk of Musk joining the Trump administration and getting rid of bureaucracy, as I previously noted. Yeah, Elon Musk is Donald Trump's biggest asset at this point, one of the richest men on earth, if not the richest man, and he is all for Trump, and he is running Trump's ground game and all those sorts of things, and has turned his social media site into a major pro-Trump rallying point, and we'll see if it all pays off.
I mean, there's a lot happening here. He's definitely playing fast and loose with the law. While initially he had said that this was a lottery, right? He illustrated it as a lottery, and then when they realized they were violating the rules for lotteries in Pennsylvania, that's when they said, "Oh no, it's not a lottery," and then they immediately had workers sign a contract after the lottery recipients labeled as workers and sign a contract that they were workers, spokespeople. But when they received the money, they weren't under contract. So now there's other sorts of legal issues that they have to face. I mean, he does, it's still the law. The law is the law. He can go to jail for it. So you can yawn about the law. But the other thing, which is crazy, he says canvassers. Did you hear about this? He had these canvassers working. He put them all in a truck for long hours, violated all sorts of laws. I'm sorry, laws are not boring. There's a reason why we have laws in our country. I know you're a libertarian, but you can't just
laws to stop
your
Elon Musk for
employees
using his own money to try to
mistreat
encourage
workers?
people to register to vote. I think that's fine.
He mistreated his workers and then fired them, and now folks...
Firing your workers is mistreating them?
No. He mistreated them afterwards, after they complained about the working conditions, which were egregious and it was dangerous. And then he fired them. And even if they're at will, it doesn't mean you get to mistreat workers. We still have human rights laws in our country.
Yeah. I am excited for the potential role Elon Musk would play in the administration, although I always say I don't know that Elon Musk's time is best spent on tinkering with our governance or even with his social media site. This is a man who is building spectacular rockets and whose mental energies are best put toward that purpose. But I'm a big Ron Paul fan, so I was happy to see him get that shout out there. He pointed out in his response that the Department of Government Efficiency sounds like a paradox. It wouldn't even make sense. We don't need another government commission on making government more efficient. We need fewer government commissions overall. You don't need like a new government commission. You just have to like shrink the actual government, which I predict won't even ever happen under Donald Trump or anyone else.
We had the GAO already.
Happens, but
why doesn't he just become the head of the GAO?
yeah, let's cut defense, education.
No.
I got some health bureaucracies to close down.
Well, next pandemic.
I've got some we would have been better off if there had been no CDC during the pandemic.
That's not true.
It's absolutely
so
true.
You would have been in charge, or who would have been in charge of people up to?
No one. We don't need anyone in charge.
I'm glad you believe in science.
If we'd never had
Robbie. Science is not perfect. Right?
Science caused the pandemic.
Science is not perfect, right? Science isn't.
There's not perfect, and then there's killed millions of people worldwide.
If we did it, well, yes, because we didn't respond in time and we didn't release the vaccine
We caused
in time.
it.
Who caused it?
Donald
Trump?
Fauci.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's just true.
Fact checks.
It's not. I mean, that is the conclusion.
not true.
It's the conclusion of the Energy Department and the FBI.
That he caused the pandemic? Was he in a lab in China?
Yeah, it was research he signed off on. He is the foremost public advocate who personally proved the research paid for by U.S. taxpayers, done in Wuhan, is the view of the Energy Department that was the origin of COVID-19. So if we're trusting in authorities, obviously not all authorities think that, but many of them do. So that's why and then in terms of vaccine, I'm all for rolling out the vaccines as rapidly as possible. Again, that's U.S. health bureaucracy slowing that down. That's not.
I mean, that was
it
Donald
could be
Trump.
even faster.
Donald Trump sent him to Russia.
He made it faster than any vaccine has ever been approved. Could have been faster.
Once he announced that he believed in COVID, which took 6
Trump
weeks.
didn't do any. Trump oversaw the most successful fast vaccine release drive ever done in human history. It could have been even better with less bureaucracy.
Well, we had not had a pandemic like this in modern human history. So, of course, it was the fastest response, but it was not fast enough.
The CDC also centralized testing initially, made other tests illegal, and they screwed it up because those tests didn't work.
But we didn't, see, Robbie, the thing is this was unprecedented. So everybody was working, that's how science works. Science is not perfect. Science is better than not having science. It's like democracy, right? Democracy is the worst thing we have, but the alternative is we don't have democracy. So the alternative is worse. If you don't have science, the alternative is we all would have died.
What do you mean we don't have science? Of course we're going to have science, but the scientists disagree, and they should be offering guidance, and then you make whatever decision you think correlates with your individual health situation. Science is not made by, Dr. Fauci decreed himself the science, like a priesthood of believers or something. Yes, he did. That's a literal quote from him. He said, "I am the science, and to disagree with me is to disagree with the science." It wasn't science, it was religion. That's my problem with it. Anyway, I don't know why we got into a COVID discussion. We used to have a lot more of those on the show, but we will be back with more Rising right after this. Former President Donald Trump was spitting fire at his final rally before Election Day last night. He first went after former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats. Let's watch.
She sells her stock. Hours after she sells her stock, they announce that Visa's under massive investigation. The stock goes tumbling down. She's a crooked person. She's a bad person. Evil. She's an evil, sick, crazy. Oh, no. It starts with a B, but I won't say it. I want to say it.
The convicted former President Donald Trump, of course, couldn't go without mentioning Kamala Harris and the Democrats.
They're just trouble for our country. They're bad, sick people. We will defeat the corrupt system in Washington because I'm not running against Kamala. I'm running against an evil Democrat system. These are evil people.
He also called some of America's past military generals, quote, stupid.
We beat ISIS. 100% of the ISIS caliphate was taken down. And it was done in a matter of weeks. When our stupid generals, our terrible generals, the guys up top like Milley, like Kelly, real losers. Kelly was dumb as a rock. I'll never do that again. I say, give me a letter of resignation.
Well, I agree with everything he said so far. Let's see if we can keep that up. Here's what his running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, said when going after Harris at the final rally in Atlanta, Georgia, yesterday.
2 days, we are going to take out the trash in Washington, D.C., and the trash's name is Kamala Harris.
So, what's in a word?
Again, I'm not a Trump supporter or voter, but I agree with everything he just said. The generals are idiots. They were involved in catastrophic foreign policy blunders after foreign policy blunders, and the best thing about Trump is that he tried to break with them. He didn't always succeed at that, which is unfortunate. Maybe he'd do it more successfully in his next term. I guess you can, clutch your pearls over the strong language he uses for Nancy Pelosi, but he was criticizing her over corruption, over thwarting. She was the person most responsible for nuking the Stock Act, the effort to prevent members of Congress from trading in stocks, something most people on both the right and left and center all believes that Congress shouldn't be allowed to do that. And she is very wealthy from trading stocks, and not just those credit companies, but Facebook itself she owns stock in. She's a Silicon Valley adjacent representative. Right, it's her husband who owns it, not her. That's the little way they get around that. But I think going after her for that is very popular.
Everybody has a right to criticize somebody's record and follow the money, and I completely agree with you. That I don't think it should be legal. I think we can agree on that. But
everybody agrees on that.
But,
it's not a, it's
well,
a,
Donald
that's
Trump
like a 70%
doesn't
issue.
Donald Trump picks these. I love it. Like Mr. Profiting off of the presidency, his friends and family all around him profiting off the presidency is now the arbiter of what good governance is. Okay, it's comical. The fact that he said he defeated ISIS Caliphate, that's not true. It's been fact checked. He even had to go back and correct himself in 2019 when he said it, but he's back to saying that.
Well,
it's a.
I wasn't just him. We beat ISIS back into the Stone Age to some degree. The Obama administration did, Trump did, Biden did. They occupied a massive territory across the Middle East. Now they occupy almost nothing.
Well,
I'm not solely crediting that to Trump.
Exactly. It's just
military.
He's even corrected himself on that, and he's bringing it back on the campaign trail. Calling your opponent garbage, J.D. Vance, I'm so curious what his wife is thinking, who's not on the campaign trail with him, and neither are his kids. This woman who met him in law school when he was a Democrat, and now listening to this rhetoric come out of his mouth, I question.
What is the need to create marital strife here? I think she probably agrees with him wholeheartedly.
How do you know that?
Well, I guess I don't know it, but
because she's not on the campaign trail, she's not talking.
We're not running to elect her.
Well, usually family and folks come out on the campaign trail.
I mean, she made a speech. She's spoken on his behalf. We've heard a little bit from her.
When's the last time she spoke?
Well, maybe she doesn't like. I mean, Melania doesn't like the spotlight or like to speak, which is fine.
Neither does Ivanka Trump. They were on stage last night. I don't know about you. I watched this speech at 1 o'clock in the morning. They went on stage at 1 o'clock in the morning, which is wild. Okay.
Yeah.
So the family's up there. Ivanka's not up there. And then I opened up Instagram, and she had just posted last night this whole post about turning 43 this week. Nothing about her father. Nothing about the election tomorrow.
She doesn't want to be involved anymore in the administration. That's fine. She had enough of it. They don't have to be involved.
You can support your father.
I think she does. I think it's better, frankly, for family members not to be involved in the inner workings of the government. I think putting Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump in charge of large portions of his policy was the first sign that the Donald Trump presidency was going to go awry. It actually drew criticism from a lot of conservatives at the time. I remember that was Ann Coulter's first strong remark against Donald Trump, is that this is nepotism stuff to put your kids in charge of everything, and also that the kids did not support and were not on board with the America First agenda that Donald Trump represented at all. Jared Kushner was a liberal internationalist. So that was a big mistake, and I hope they're not involved. And I think their supporters hope they're not involved.
I think there's a difference between being in the administration, which I was fully against as well, and tweeting or putting something on Instagram last night during the rally about her life and her birthday and nothing to do with her father's election the next day. That was weird. Yeah, my mom ran for office.
I want them not involved.
I wasn't involved, but I supported her.
I wish the Bidens were less involved in Biden's decision-making. Biden holding on to power, still clinging to the notion that he could not only be president, but run for re-election because he was surrounding himself with his wife and his son.
We have debated this.
His son who maybe needs a pardon.
All right, well, guess what? He's not
Well, he's still the
not running
president.
for election right now, and now we have Kamala Harris.
He's just running the country.
I don't know about you. I just think that it's an interesting strategy to come on stage at 1 o'clock in the morning, say you have the biggest audience ever, and then these cameras are pulling back and showing the empty crowds. People are leaving because they're like 3, 4 hours. I mean, these rallies are so long, you know it. And then he just bashes women. I mean, it was just a misogyny fest last night.
Well, he doesn't. He bashes
play well.
specific women.
He bashes
He's
all
not
women.
bashing
I'm going to protect women whether they like it or not.
He's not bashing women as a category. I think that's very unfair. He's bashing specific women. And he doesn't just bash women. He bashes people he dislikes and disagrees with who are women and men. I mean, he's had bad things to say about men in his own party. Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, etc. Very graphic, mean things. He's an insult type person. That's what he does. There's no specific, I utterly reject the notion that it's specifically reserved for women. He happens to be running against a woman right now, and he did in 2016, and he's, said nasty things about them, but not because they're women, because they're his opponents.
Well, also they're gendered attacks. They're not, he was trying to say the B word, that was what he was mouthing on stage. No, I was a little nervous about his mouthing because I thought he was going to go for the microphone thing again. I just
don't, how can we take this seriously when he's described by everyone in the resistance as like Cheeto Hitler or something, like his hair mocked, his physical appearance, everything. Well, okay, but
did you see the tan? Like,
why
he does it to himself.
Well, that's what I don't understand. Then what is the rule? It's
rule is
okay to insult Donald Trump. It's not okay to insult female politicians.
We insult him based on what he does. He insulted
he's
based
insulted
on their
based
gender.
on, no. Well, he's insulted based on his looks.
Face. Did you see his face on the? Come on.
Again, I think it's fine to make fun of him, but this is just the rule is it's only okay to make fun of Donald.
No, Robby, are we like?
But we can't do. What is
like
it? I don't know what a gendered attack. Calling her the B word.
B word, yeah. Calling him crazy, hysterical. All the things that he's been saying are gendered.
Okay, I've definitely used that word pejoratively against men as well as women.
Well, that's your taste.
All right, we've got a lot more. We're just getting started today. Coming up next, Liz Cheney for Attorney General under Kamala Harris. The ladies of The View really like that idea. We'll talk about it. Stay tuned. Attorney General Liz Cheney. That's how things could be in the Kamala Harris administration, at least if the ladies of The View had their way. Let's listen.
Are you also a lawyer?
Yeah. I am.
So you could conceivably be a great AG if this was... Because, and I say this because your moral core is magnificent.
Wow.
And I know you probably don't want it, you don't want to think about it, but I just feel like I would feel a lot better with you leading the FBI, the CIA, the NBC, the elementary, everybody. That's just me. So I'm just saying, should it be floated? Please think about it.
Okay. And under the radar.
We have to get Vice President Harris elected too.
Yeah.
I can think of few things more terrifying than having Liz Cheney be in charge of the agencies that that Whoopi Goldberg just mentioned there. That was a suggestion for Kamala Harris to pick her to run those things, and it is just miraculous. If I could go back in time and tell my 16-year-old self back in 2000, back in the mid-aughts, that one day within my lifetime, Democrats and liberal commentators would be not just begrudgingly making common cause with Liz Cheney, with the Cheneys for the narrow purposes of not liking Donald Trump, but wholly on board with them as the trusted to lead our country. It would just be, I wouldn't believe it, but here we are. I mean, does Whoopi Goldberg not remember any of the Cheney family's other stances that she presumably did not like? Their full-throated support for things like foreign wars and the Patriot Act, a product of the Cheney philosophy, control over the Bush administration. We're going to be doing a lot of lot of civil liberties violations, a lot of torture, maybe?
Yes, exactly.
Remember when we cared about torture?
Guantanamo,
liberals?
Cheney versus the U.S. government. I mean, there were suspending habeas corpus, as you know, and she backed that too.
I'm feeling waterboarded right now.
I don't want to punish her for her father's opinions, but it just happens to be that her opinions and her record are very similar to her father's. No, she was not in the presidency. With that being said, what I don't understand about some liberals not getting this, right? And I also progressives, I get the point of having Liz Cheney endorse Kamala Harris to give permission to some moderate Republican women in particular, to vote for Kamala Harris. But that does not mean you hand over the entire movement to them. They are an asset in a moment because elections are oftentimes about coalitions and bringing people together that may not agree. And I'm glad that they've changed their mind about democracy because they were very anti-democracy in 2000. And furthermore, throughout the Bush-Cheney reign. But what I don't understand is she has these kind of comments a lot. I like Whoopi, she's funny, she's got a great history, and I think most of her politics are pretty good.
I liked her in the Sister Act movies,
Sister Act series,
like everyone else.
But she kind of loses the strategy behind how when we're making political decisions like this, when coalitions are being built. It's about coming together on one issue in the face of something else. It's a moment. It is not a movement. And I'm just concerned, even with progressives who also don't understand why Liz Cheney's on board, they don't understand necessarily the politics of what it means to win. How many votes does Kamala Harris have to get and where are they going to come from? At some point, you got to pull those votes from somewhere. But again, it doesn't mean we are handing the presidency to Liz Cheney. And I am so concerned about habeas corpus, so concerned about Guantanamo.
It seems like they'd be happy to hand the president, I mean, not the literal presidency, but outsource major policy-making decisions to the Liz Cheneys of the world. That's what's so fascinating. There was a comment on the Bulwark podcast the other day. These are very, ostensibly Republican, but truly just never Trump, anti-Trump, liberal now, basically. Tim Miller, that guy, and some other people. And somebody else said, have the neocons taken over the Democratic Party? And I think it was Tim who was like, shh, don't say that out loud. But it's true. If you're a neoconservative, you belong in the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party's foreign policy reflects your agenda more than Trump's Republican Party does. I think that's true.
I think in terms of...
I think the nation building, war-footed, listen to military experts, escalate tensions with Russia, Iran, China, that is more common in the Democratic Party.
I think there are pieces...
The China stuff is in both, but...
Yeah, the China stuff's in both. I think there are pieces of the Democratic Party who are absolutely leaning heavily. I think you can be concerned about China, you can be concerned about Russia, and not be ready to go to war.
Well, I agree with that.
Which I don't think Joe Biden or Kamala Harris are doing anything that indicates they want to go to war. I mean, defending a critical part of Europe, essentially, with Ukraine is one thing, but we have not put boots on the ground, except for assisting those weapons in Israel. And I don't think that's anything Democrats want to do. We want to get out.
I wouldn't send weapons
stop
to
sending
Israel
weapons.
or Ukraine.
Yes, I agree. Well, Ukraine's a different story because Russia has been incredibly clear about their moves to take over Eastern Europe. We're aware of that.
I think that's Eastern Europe's problem, not the U.S.
Well, it spills into global
what's spilling into global stability is having this war going on. Look, the world has gotten, this is true. We talk about Trump, or not me, the media talks about Trump as the chaos candidate, but the world has gotten way less stable under, and I'm not blaming him for all of it, but under the last 4 years, we have way more problems on the foreign policy side of things than we did under the years of Trump.
Policy. That's because you have China and Russia who've been working together for years.
They don't respect or fear or want or care about Biden at all.
They don't care about democracy at all, and they would be very happy being able to do whatever they want. So would Donald Trump. Now, where I think the neocons differ from the neoliberals, hopefully, is that the neocons see the United States government and military-industrial complex as a money-making machine. And I just don't think Democrats, of course, the rotating door, the revolving door of Republicans going to work.
Yeah, but sometimes I think
lobbyists.
That it is ideological. They also firmly believe it's not just that. Some people paid off, and it has been profitable for them, right? Obviously, the Cheney family has close ties to the defense industry, but it is also just ideological.
Totally, but that's kind of how this works, right? Your politics is often in line with where you're making your money. So.
All right. Well,
no to Liz.
No to Liz, please. We do agree on that. Coming up next on Rising, we'll talk about Elon Musk's rise in the Republican Party. Stay tuned.
Election interference has been on the minds and feeds of both sides. Here's the GOP.
And we're leading in all the polls. We should get elected, but remember this, they cheat like hell.
They cheat like hell. Then there is this from the Philadelphia District Attorney, Larry Krasner. Anyone trying to intimidate voters will have to.
We don't have any deep, abiding fears or concerns. We don't have any reports. I want people to be reassured that when they get up tomorrow to go vote, if they have not voted already, that everybody in this city is working and has been working for months to make sure that there will be nothing tough about that experience and nothing to fear in that experience. But I also want to be clear, anybody who thinks it's time to play militia, F around and find out. Anybody who thinks it's time to insult, to deride, to mistreat, to threaten people, F around and find out.
So how real is election interference? With us now to discuss voter intimidation and what he has and has not seen on the ground in that big swing state of Georgia is Gerald Griggs, who is the president of the NAACP chapter in Georgia. Gerald, thank you so much for joining us. Big day. I had the pleasure of interviewing you recently around this related to a film called Vigilantes, Inc. And you talked in that film and in the interview quite a bit about some of the intimidation tactics that were used for voter registration. Can you explain what tactics are being used for registration versus intimidation on the ground on Election Day?
So there are a lot of barriers that have been created in Georgia to prevent people from registering to vote and prevent people from voting. And most of them are legal challenges. We have run into a few threats. We were registering individuals to vote. And they were saying that certain landlords are telling them if they don't vote for a certain candidate or lean a certain way, they're not going to renew their lease. But we've also seen bomb threats and other things that are happening on the ground. But the main and most important way that they are trying to threaten voters is by these unlimited voter challenges that they are lobbying at citizens based on their race and based on their perceived affiliation. So we're seeing a lot of that because of the passage of Senate Bill 202 and now Senate Bill 189, which now allows citizens to unlimitedly challenge another voter based on believing they're not a resident. And so they can send a challenge out. They've sent thousands upon thousands of challenges out, and then the voter has to come back in and prove they're in fact a resident of the state, a resident of the county where they reside. And that's causing a lot of intimidation, and that's causing and preventing a lot of people from voting.
When was that passed, Gerald?
One was passed in 2021, and most recently there was one passed in 2023, which are now affecting the 2024 election.
I guess the counter argument would be, why is it inappropriate to make sure, guarantee, double check that people who are voting are in fact who they say they are and reside in the place for which they're picking the election options?
And the corollary to that is under Georgia law, you have to be a resident of the state to vote. That is checked when you register. So for a citizen to do the job of the government, it's just providing another hurdle. It's like a poll tax, like a literacy test. It's like deputizing individuals to do a job they have no business doing. So I understand the corollary of that argument, but the United States Constitution, the Georgia Constitution, and the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act push back against that. So I understand the argument, just not legally valid.
It seems pretty organized too. Have you found that there are organizations, there's funding behind this? Are they training these people? I mean, I can't imagine you just wake up one day and say, I'm going to go out there and go through the roles and figure out who's living in places and who's not. It seems incredibly complicated, frankly.
Yes, there are organizations that are providing a list, that are training individuals, that are actually providing the information to how to challenge and to help them actually make the challenges. So many times the people that are putting these challenges forth have not researched whether or not the person they're challenged is somebody they should validly challenge. So we're seeing that this is an organized, strategic, laser-pointed effort to disenfranchise thousands of people of color. And that's why we've been sounding the alarm. That's why we've been filing lawsuits. That's why we've been making sure that individuals know that if they are lawfully registered at that residence, they can vote, and that they need to return for these hearings if they're challenged. We're also dealing with the local election boards to make sure they understand what the standard is and to not allow these frivolous challenges to proceed forward.
Gerald, I'm curious what's happening right now on the ground. So that's registration and a lot of work for folks to have to follow up and make sure they're still registered. But today, how are the polls looking? Is there intimidation happening? Any reports coming in? Any legal fights?
There are reports coming in, and we are vetting those reports as we proceed forward. We actually are in the war room here in the Georgia NAACP. We have national staff that is here from the Office of General Counsel. We have our lawyers from the Lawyers Committee who are present virtually, and we are ready to file any legal actions. So there have been a few legal actions that have been filed previous to this election. There hasn't been any filed so far on election day, and we have had reports of poll closures and a few machines down, but nothing distressing to show that there's any intimidation or any attempts to prevent people from voting. But if there are, we will respond as we always have, and we will make sure the state of Georgia abides by its election laws. So currently, there's not a lot of litigation. Supreme Court weighed in into absentee balloting and said that the absentee ballots that are turned in by 7 o'clock tonight will be counted. The others will be held, and there'll be further litigation on those. But other than that, we have seen, swift people voting at the voting booths and no intimidation or no attempts to challenge anybody so far. But we're waiting and hopefully optimistic that it will not happen.
Yeah, I'm seeing from social media, and perhaps you can shed light on this because this is just crossing my feed right now, but the chairman of the GOP in Georgia saying that they won at the court to have Cobb County not accept 3,000 absentee ballots that were submitted after Election Day. Up to Election Day, the absentee ballots obviously submitted, but that they're not going to be submitted afterward. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, and so it's important to actually read what the Supreme Court said. Supreme Court said that any absentee ballots received before or up to 7 o'clock, they will accept. That's the law. So I don't really see that being a win. The 3,000 absentee ballots, as long as they're submitted within that 7 o'clock window, will be counted. So I don't know how that's a win. And what I would say to any party that are trying to limit people's access to the ballot, that's not a winning platform. So hopefully both parties will push their voters to vote within the confines of the law and not try to prohibit individuals from exercising their right to the franchise.
We're hearing reports all across the country in these swing states that the polling sites have had to take extra precautions in preparation for some pushback, even maybe after everybody's cast their votes. Can you tell us what folks are doing on the ground? I mean, I heard about snipers in Arizona on the roofs of certain polling sites. Crazy. I've never heard that in the history of my voting. Anything out of normal that folks are doing now to prepare?
Well, nothing out of the normal. And, us being a southern state that has a history of Jim Crow and a history of voter intimidation, we don't want law enforcement at the polls. That will dissuade some individuals who have negative interaction with law enforcement. But what we do want is security to make sure that everyone is exercising their right to access to the franchise. So many of the local boards of election have beefed up security, both inside and outside the polls. They have cameras and they have command centers that are connected to law enforcement should anything happen. So the sheriffs don't have to be right there, but if anything happens, they will respond. So we have talked to many of the metro counties and a lot of the rural counties, and they have beefed up security through surveillance and other tactics to make sure that everyone's safe.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Luck.
Thank you for having me.
Joe Rogan has endorsed Donald Trump. The podcasting giant interviewed Elon Musk on his show, saying that Musk makes the most compelling argument for Trump he's ever heard. Rogan wrote on X, quote, "The great and powerful Elon Musk, if it wasn't for him, we'd be effed. He makes what I think is the most compelling case for Trump you'll ever hear, and I agree with him every step of the way. For the record, yes, that's an endorsement of Trump. Enjoy the podcast." Let's watch.
Thank you so much for buying Twitter.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm not exaggerating when I think you changed the course of history. I really do. I really think you made a fork in the road. We were headed down a path of censorship and of control of narratives that is unprecedented. Forget about what they were able to do back when they had newspapers and the media under control. what they were doing with social media by suppressing information, and when you had a combined government effort, like what they were doing with the laptop story, we have 51 former intelligence agents saying that this is Russian disinformation, take it offline, and Twitter complied. If you didn't buy that, we wouldn't have known that. We had no idea.
Exactly.
I mean, I think what this goes to show you is how clumsy and counterproductive the efforts to censor information on social media made by the government were, and that they have inspired this massive backlash among alternative media figures who who formerly were independent-minded people of the left. Joe Rogan is someone who had Bernie Sanders on his show several years ago, who I don't know that I can't remember if he explicitly endorsed Bernie Sanders, but he was clearly most favorable toward Bernie Sanders. He said a lot of nice things about him. That was his ethos, was a Bernie Sanders left ethos. And he's not the only one. There are a lot of people, commentators, podcasters who are in that space who have drifted to the right for a variety of reasons. A big one of them is the censorship on social media. Another was COVID and feeling gaslit by experts and sources of authority and information, democratic sources, and that has pushed them to the right to the point where he is now praising Elon Musk and endorsing Donald Trump.
I mean, I never bought that he was ever a progressive. I think he was getting involved in that primary because he had an agenda. You know, I think a lot of folks on the right wanted to see Hillary Clinton go up against Donald Trump because, frankly, Bernie Sanders could have beaten Donald Trump, and we were on that campaign, and we felt that way too. I think
felt that way too.
We were watching really closely. He was saying anti-trans things at the time. He was saying a lot of things that were culturally very conservative and did not line up to the point where we understood, okay, yes, it's important for Bernie Sanders to go on all sorts of media. He went on Fox News, notably. He did that big event at that Christian university in the South. Was it Liberty University? I forgot which one. And, so that was his strategy, but that doesn't mean they endorsed him. It's clear the whole time he's been a Donald Trump fan. What I find interesting is he waited until the last minute, and usually when that happens, when somebody endorses in the last minute, it's a little trick in politics. It's a way of saying, like, yeah, I support you, but, like, I really don't want to be tethered to this. And
I don't think he was always a Trump supporter by any stretch of the imagination. He consistently declined to have Trump on his show. He said, last time around, I think in 2020, he said, I will not have Trump on my show because I don't want to be seen in any way, shape, or form as supporting or contributing or helping his campaign. I actually criticized that because they said, well, you can have him on without being a supporter. You could have him on and ask him a tough question. So I remember talking about that on this show, and it was not clear. Now, he has been pushed in that direction or persuaded that Trump's policies are the kind of policies he stands for as someone who is, you're right, culturally more... It's certainly not progressive or independent of progressivism, but who is someone who has a huge audience that is young, is working class, also younger, right-leaning,
male.
Independent, very male,
Very
sure,
male.
Independent perspective people, and it is just a massive audience. I mostly see Joe Rogan clips from when they make it onto social media. I don't sit down and listen to the whole episode very often, but I know people who do. I know people who don't listen to politics, family members, friends, back home in Michigan who are not so plugged into politics or not, they're not reading Nate Silver's Substack every day the way I am, but they do listen to Joe Rogan. And that's the main source of information.
I actually think he has more listeners than Twitter and X have viewers because, even when I'm reading that book on Elon Musk right now and his purchase of Twitter at the time. It's called Character Limit. Definitely recommend it. And, he went in saying he was going to get rid of the bots, figure out what the actual number of Twitter users was. He said he was going to make the algorithm transparent, which he hasn't done. And he said he made all these promises and he hasn't followed through. And as a result, X usership is drastically down. It's been devalued as of last month, 80%. When Goldman Sachs wrote this entire report, they thought that they were going to be making hundreds of millions of dollars within a year. So I love that Joe Rogan's praising his purchase of Twitter and saving Twitter, but it's barely worth anything now.
Elon has said he's willing to lose money in order to defend his principles, in order to defend free speech. He made it a free speech site.
For him.
He changed the moderation policies so that you can say things that are wrong or hateful or whatever, and you get fact-checked by them in the community notes feature. I think it's great. And maybe that's not profitable. Maybe advertisers don't like when you just let people say whatever they want, and so it reduces the revenue for the site. Now, I think they've also been up against utterly bad faith, wrong attacks by third party, the hate-watching groups like the Anti-Defamation League, for instance, trying to say that, oh, there's all this hate on the platform, and if you're a advertiser, you should stop working with X, so that has hurt them, and they're trying to convert to a subscription model, and maybe in the long run that'll work out, or maybe it won't, but I don't think Elon Musk cares. He did this on principle. He thinks it should be a free speech site and that the moderation before was bad. And I agree that the moderation before was bad. Everybody now agrees that the moderation before was bad because they did things the government wanted that were wrong. But they took down people being told they were bots that weren't bots, and because the government said so.
So since 2016, Twitter has been the #1 app in pretty much every region of the world where it existed. And it is by far not anymore. It's losing, across the board.
It's never been bigger than Facebook.
It says, I'm looking at, there's a Social Media Today.
I don't know. Yeah. There's been no point in time in which Twitter had more users than Facebook. Facebook has like 1 billion users.
No, I understand. I agree. But #1 app, so downloaded app, whatever it is. So it doesn't mean, I don't know. This is even Elon Musk saying this. Has repeatedly
the revenue from Twitter is
X has been the #1 news app in several regions. Okay, so I agree with you. It seems strange, but that's what he states, and that's what this report states for some reason. So I don't know what the metrics are that they're using this. But with that being said, it isn't about free speech. Free speech is like a brand for him. It's like hashtag free speech for me, but not for everybody else.
How's it not for everybody else? Everybody can post now.
Including bots and bot networks, and you can promote your stuff and get to the top of the algorithm if you buy followers, if you're boosted by Russia, whether you know it or not. Tim Pool didn't even know, even though he was receiving $100,000 a week, that he was being boosted.
Well, that was not to boost his content. That was to pay. They paid him.
Yes, but there's also boosting involved in that, and because he's not being transparent with the algorithm.
We can all pay for boosting. You can pay for a check mark now, and you get a boost. Or you can pay for a premium subscription, you get a boost. Before it was just bestowed on people at random. Now you can pay for it and you get a boost, yeah.
No, you don't get it. If you want to pay for retweets, if you're an asset to a foreign adversary and they buy bot networks, you've probably never been on the receiving end of these bots. It's comic. Last week I had to deal with it, and it was like person with 5 followers.
Conspiratorial.
It is not conspiratorial. There's research institutes. It's conspiratorial that you're blinding yourself from this, and that he doesn't want to address it. Last week there was a video. I'm sure you saw the video when we covered it on the show of somebody taking ballots and throwing them in the garbage in Pennsylvania, okay? That video got hundreds of millions of views, and they finally put a correction below, and the community notes there were only a small set of views of those community notes. And it turns out that video was Russian propaganda. So yeah, I think something like that should be taken down. We have editorial rooms for a reason. Are they perfect? No. I constantly have criticisms of the mainstream media. But to just throw everything out and do whatever Elon Musk says, he's the ultimate arbiter of free.
It's not an editorial. Speech. It's not doing editorial behavior. It is letting anyone post anything, and you can decide for yourself what you think is right and what is not, and you can dispute that it's a social media platform. It's not saying it's lifted its thumb off the scale. Anyone can say whatever they want with some very minimal guardrails for like actual criminal activity, and that's what many users want. If you don't want that, then you can go somewhere else, but that's the way Twitter is.
But the algorithm isn't transparent. So if the algorithm were transparent, then that would be fine, right? Free speech absolutism needs to have a system that is also fair. You can't put free speech absolutism on a system that is weighted towards one perspective, which just happens to be Elon Musk's perspective.
Yeah, I have some skepticism that it's weighted in that perspective. I think it's just become, he is conservative. A lot of liberals were chased off the site because they didn't like the change in management. So now it's a more right-wing user base. And so the algorithm is recommending content to the people that they want to engage with. It's not, you're making it sound nefarious, but like I see more advertisements for men's sweaters than I do like bras or something on Facebook because the algorithm knows what kind of products I'm going to buy, and it's not a nefarious process. Similarly, people are being served content that they want to engage with. That's just the way social media works. It's not malicious. It's not tricking everything.
This isn't a theory anymore. There have been so many different reports on this, whether it's from the government that you don't trust or from research institutes. But let's just say this. He promised to make the algorithm transparent, and he hasn't. So...
Well, we've got a lot more to get to today on Rising, and much later today when we'll be checking in on the election results, or lack thereof, later tonight. Stick with us. Now the moment you've all been waiting for. What are our predictions for who is going to win election night. I'm going to start, Nomiki. I made my electoral map, 270 map yesterday, and here it is on screen, although you can't see the... Oh, there it is. Okay, great. There's the map. So I'm predicting the very narrowest possible win, 270 to 268. Kamala Harris taking it. I'm to be clear, this is a prediction, not what I want to happen by any stretch of the imagination. I could also very well be wrong. I have no confidence in this. I'm far less confident than I was in any other election in my lifetime, probably. I have Kamala Harris winning Pennsylvania. If Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania, that's it. He will win the election. I will not be at all surprised if that happens. To be clear, so don't come at me 2 days from now and say, ha ha, Robby, you were wrong. You never knew this could happen. No, it's a coin flip. Donald Trump absolutely could win. He could win in a blowout. I am not saying that's outside the realm of possibility. But my prediction is that he does take Nevada, where Kamala Harris is currently projected to win, but that she will hold on to those 3 blue wall states, and he's going to flip back Arizona. So he's going to improve on his performance versus Joe Biden because he's going to take Nevada and Arizona and Georgia, but that will not be quite enough to win unless something weird happens. And here I don't actually even understand how this works, but in Nebraska and Maine, where they don't exactly do the electoral votes for the whole state, this is possible. And Nate Silver has said there's like a 1% chance of this, which is actually a lot, that we have a 269-269 tie. And that will be crazy because then it goes to the House of Representatives, but it's the new House that picks the president, and it's by state delegation. It gets kind of tricky. It's possible they could deadlock, and then it's going to be the Senate will pick, and if the Republicans take the Senate, they'll pick J.D. Vance as vice president, and he'll be like acting president. Yeah. That is not an impossible situation. It's what happened on the television show Veep. Okay, that's what I think. That's my prediction. What do you say, Nomiki?
Okay, so let's show my map. Can we do that? All right. I know you guys are like, you're
what?
Wait,
are you insane?
Let me explain.
Oh my God.
Hear me out. Okay. Again, I made this map 4 minutes before the show, so I had to very quickly put this together. But there's a bunch of stuff happening. I've been predicting a landslide for at least 3 weeks now. Hear me out. All right. Okay. So first off, 2016. Donald Trump has a smaller coalition than 2020 and 2016. 2016 was his biggest coalition. He had a lot more older voters at that time. Since then, it's been 8 years. Several older voters have unfortunately died, also COVID deaths. So let's just start with age, right? She is doing far better than any other Democrat since 2000, as I've said before, with older voters. R plus 13 average, Republican plus 13 for those voters over 50, and she is winning with them, especially with women, but also with men. He is only doing well with one demographic, and that is young men under the age of 40 who are the least reliable voters. That's why he's doing the full podcast thing. It's why every Republican, mainstream Republican, is trying to get him to expand his coalition. He has a smaller coalition since 2020, since storming the Capitol, and we're seeing that in the exit polls already, people saying things like, yeah, I voted for him in 2020, but January 6th happened. She is doing exceedingly well, more than in the past, with young women women are the most reliable voters. And in exit polls in some states, she's doubling women to men in these early voting states. It is double the number of women voting for men.
You effectively think the
poll... let me keep going. Okay. Also, polls skew older. The polls have been hyper-corrected, as we know, to reflect 2016 concerns. But they also skew older, and she is doing not just very well with older voters, but also with younger voters. The only demographic he's doing well with is young men at this point. He took 2 weeks ago, he was getting a few points from African Americans. That's balanced out to 2020 levels. And then last but not least, a community I have worked for the last 8 years with very deeply, the Puerto Rican community and Latino vote. And I think what happened at Madison Square Garden is going to have a reverberating effect. In Pennsylvania alone, there are 450,000 Puerto Rican voters, 680,000 Latino voters, and right now it seems like she is really pulling them back into her favor. And I think it's all going to come down to Reading, Pennsylvania, where they closed out the election. I'm not saying it's going to be a landslide in some of these states, but...
I mean, I agree with you it's going to come down to Pennsylvania, and that she could win Pennsylvania. That is my prediction. But you have her winning Texas and Florida?
Yeah. Puerto Rican vote.
Okay.
Latinos.
I will wear a White Dudes for Harris t-shirt on this show.
Texas was already
if
kind
she
of in the
wins
mix.
Texas and Florida. There is no way on God's green earth that's going to happen. That is insane.
The problem with Democrats, and I got a lot
You
of
think the polls are massively wrong in Trump's favor? That's what you're saying.
I'm not saying that they're biased. I think there's a lot of theories about that. I'm saying that they're massively wrong because we are dealing with a 2016, which was 8 years ago, and 2020, which was COVID, where everybody was mailing in their votes, and using off-cycle elections to model off of 2022, which also reflects what I'm saying in terms of coalitions shrinking, women, not just because of reproductive rights. She's obviously the first woman candidate. He speaks very disparagingly of women. But also Texas and Florida, the Democrats just pulled out of those states. I covered the DNC
because they know it's impossible to win them.
No. Well, no, because the model of Democratic Party at the time was very much like, we're not funding state parties anymore. That is a major problem that occurred out of Barack Obama's presidency. They used to fund every single state party. That was the 50-state strategy. Howard Dean popularized that. And then they pulled out and they put them all into the DNC for the presidential election because there was more money there. They wanted to put all the money into ads. And as a result, when you don't have a state party, you're going to have a legislature taken over. Arizona became blue in 2006. I worked on that campaign. And then what happened? Barack Obama gets elected. They pull the funding from the state party, and he replaces the governor, Napolitano, and a Republican wins the governorship of Arizona. So we actually were blue in 2006. But when Democrats don't fund their parties, Republicans are going to win. So now we have an opportunity to invest in these states.
After the midterms, which were not as good for Republicans as expected, and that has affected how I draw my map here. But the bright spot for them was Florida, where Ron DeSantis crushed it. It has been turned into such a red state.
Fight for 15, Planned Parenthood was on the ballot, and Democrats won with those issues.
No way on earth.
Nostradamus, Nostradamus, that's what you can call me.
Yeah, that's Nomiki Stradamus, I got it.
Nostradamus.
All right, well, there you have it.
One more, gotta say it. This is science. My astrologer, everyone, Twitter's astrologer, predicted this. She said that Kamala Harris is going to win. She's been doing very well.
But did you see that Mu Dang, the little cute little hippo thing, they give a Trump cake and a Kamala cake, and he went and ate the Trump cake. So they're saying that is an omen predicting a Trump win.
He was probably a little fattier. Gonna say.
Those are our predictions there. Let us know in the comments or on social media if you probably think I'm wrong and that Nomiki is really wrong. Again, I'm not telling you what I want to happen in an endorsement. It's just my little guess. Could be wrong. If Trump wins, I will not be surprised. Maybe we'll know tomorrow. Maybe we won't. But we will be talking about it all tonight on the Hill special election coverage and back here tomorrow. See you then.
I don't know about you, but the anxiety is kicking in. So, how about a little levity?
Got a free sign here. Trump won the 2020 election.
You think Donald Trump won the 2020 election?
He always wins.
Yes?
He always wins.
All right, you're going to like this sign here. Donald Trump won the 2020 election. You can have that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
The other side says Donald Trump lost the 2020 election by a whisker. Because he says that too.
Other side says Donald Trump lost the 2020 election by a whisker. Because he also says that.
Yes.
Because Donald Trump says both things.
Yeah.
So whichever one he says, you hold up the sign for.
Okay.
Okay?
What happens if he changes it up and there's a third saying today?
What do you think the third one could be?
The third one is the runaway Trump train.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Too big to rig.
You can't really have a three-sided sign.
If Trump says, I won the 2020 election, hold up this side.
Right.
And if he says, I lost the 2020 election by a whisker, you hold up that side.
Awesome.
Okay.
I
Now,
got it.
It should be noted that those are in conflict with one another, those two thoughts.
Right.
But just go along with it. It'll make him feel good.
Obviously, Donald Trump did not win the 2020 presidential election. Joe Biden, our current president, did. The Good Liars is a comedy team that travels around the country attending rallies and political events, interviewing supporters, and sometimes brushing up against politicians. Here with us now is one half of the team, Jason Selvig, whose birthday it is also. So happy birthday, Jason, Election Day.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. Last year was daylight savings ending, and this year it's election day. So I've got no luck on my birthday.
So last night was possibly Donald Trump's very last rally. How are you feeling today? Is this an end of an era for you? Are you retiring? Like, what number rally was this?
I have no idea what number rally it is. I hope I'm retiring from this. We've been to a lot of Trump rallies, and we actually started this whole cycle, I guess, for us, started on January 6th, 2021. And I think it kind of shaped the last 4 years, at least for us, as the good liars going out there and going to these events. So I hope it's the last rally, but we will see, because it doesn't seem like, from the people we've talked to, that the election will end on election night or when the election is called. Just my prediction from the people we've talked to on the ground and what we've heard from the speakers at the rallies.
So what impressions have you formed of the people who show up to these Trump rallies? What compels them to attend, and what do they like about the former president so much?
Well, I think it's, a lot of people will say, like, what policies are really getting through that Donald Trump is putting out there? But I think you kind of hit it with your question. It is Donald Trump. These people love Donald Trump. They love his personality. And I think a lot of the things that people on the left see as negatives about Donald Trump, and, when he'll say something that's really out there, there's always this feeling, oh, it's over. This is over. Like, Donald Trump just said the worst thing possible. That is what people like about Donald Trump. That's what people go to the rallies to see. They want to see somebody who is authentic, even if that means going out there and saying some terrible things. So people are drawn to the personality and feeling like there's someone who is fighting for them out there. And I think that a lot of people are upset, with the status quo, or what the world was like when they didn't feel like they were represented in Washington. And now with Donald Trump, they actually feel like they have, like, their guy there.
So I have to ask, since you've been doing these, I mean, obviously you don't just do rallies, but this is 9 years, right? Donald Trump has been running for president for 9 years. I can see your face, and it's been your life. How have the rallies changed? Like, how has the MAGA movement changed through your eyes on the ground? Because, I think for us as reporters, we very much look at it empirically through these little sound bites, through exit polls even, but you're there on the ground in the, listening to the movement and the vibes. How has it shifted over the years?
Well, I think from the very beginning, it was Donald Trump with this message of immigration. And a lot of the people, like I said before, were upset with the status quo. And now, like, over the last, 9 years going to these events, we've been to all sorts of events from all sorts of candidates. Donald Trump's just been the candidate for the last few election cycles for presidential elections. So the last few years, we've seen a change, though, and the conspiratorial thinking is much stronger there now. Like, we've seen, I think, every rally we go to, there's somebody that believes JFK Jr. is alive and is working with Donald Trump behind the scenes. We've talked to people who believe Joe Biden was replaced by a body double. And it's not just like, you could say, like, oh, that's just a few people. But if you go to a rally and you talk to 30 people, and one of them, every single rally, believes that Joe Biden has been replaced by a body double. In some cases, they believe it's an actor playing him, and the actor is Jim Carrey. Like, you hear these things over and over again at rallies, and you realize this conspiratorial thinking has really, like, rooted itself in the Donald Trump's movement. And if you look at conspiracy, like, Donald Trump himself is a conspiracy theorist. He's already, like, spreading lies about this election, what's happening now. And he said the 2020 election was stolen. And if you throw all the JFK Jr., and the Jim Carrey, and the body double stuff out the window, I would say 99% of the people we talk to, when we ask who won the 2020 election, says Donald Trump did. So it is not there. I think there's just an overwhelming majority that believe that a huge conspiracy theory that is basically, the backbone of our democracy is believing that we have free and fair elections. So it has changed in a very dramatic way over the last couple of years.
Just a quick follow-up to that, because you threw out some zingers. I'm curious what's on the editing floor, and, like, what are some of the big ones that have shocked you? Because I can imagine it's not possible to be shocked at this point, but there's got to be a couple.
Well, look, when we go out, it's like you look at what people say. Like, sometimes, and especially in the South, I don't want to, like, overgeneralize here, but in the South, like, you can hear some things that are just, like, straight up racist or straight up homophobic, transphobic, things like that. And those things we usually don't put out, because it's just like, what is this doing for the world, putting this out into the world? But there's also been new conspiracy theories that we've heard now about the hurricanes that hit North Carolina, right here in North Carolina, where I am right now, where people believe that the government is controlling the weather and purposely sent the hurricanes to North Carolina to, one, affect the election because they hit all red counties, and then 2, to do something for lithium mining and take over the land there. And these are like things now that we hear at every single rally too. Like, and to say that these are like fringe conspiracy theories is wrong, because you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, like she's tweeted very similar things to these things, and it's been out there. And she is a congressperson from Georgia. It's a mainstream MAGA belief now, and it's something that, 12 years ago, you would say, like, there's no way people would be saying this at a political rally for Mitt Romney. Like, you weren't going to have people out there who were saying this, and now we find it, at least once since the hurricanes hit, we've heard it at a rally. So we do hear some very out there things.
You don't think if you go to rallies for Democratic politicians or left-wing causes, I mean, I've been to some of them, that you wouldn't hear very crazy things being said as well, and you have people throwing, cans of soup at paintings and that kind of behavior?
Well, I think that's a fair question to ask, and I do think, yes, you might hear some things that are out there, conspiracy theories, but I think overall, as a whole, there isn't a belief on the left right now of a huge, big conspiracy theory that is basically what is driving a whole presidential campaign. And in this case, the conspiracy theory is that Donald Trump won the 2020 election and there was widespread voter fraud, and that has not been proved anywhere. It's been thrown out in court. Trump's own attorney general found no evidence of it. And I just don't think that there is both sides on some of the maybe really out there conspiracy theories, but not the main big conspiracy theory that is the driving force of this presidential election.
Quickly push back on that, and I'll let you respond again.
Sure.
But, maybe not right now, but in the wake of 2016, the idea that Russian malfeasance itself caused Hillary Clinton to say the election was illegitimate was a major talking point in mainstream media. I wouldn't say this is the left. I would say this is like liberal, center-left, progressive people. Pervasive idea that there was something wrong with that election because of Russian involvement that I don't think has held up very well in terms of the evidence of that. That was pretty pervasive, no?
Well, you could say that those were talking points on the left, but you didn't have somebody running for president with that as their campaign platform, which is that we're going to get rid of all this voter fraud, where this was stolen from us and we have to right this wrong. You didn't see Joe Biden running for president saying, oh, this was a stolen election. He didn't win a primary with that as his campaign slogan, is we're gonna stop the steal this time. And also the biggest point I would say is you didn't see a mob of Hillary Clinton supporters storm the Capitol during the certification of the presidential election. So I just don't think if you're weighing it, I just don't think that it's anywhere close to the same.
Jason, I have enjoyed your Democratic videos as well, where you were in particular challenging Joe Biden. It's very funny moments. So I definitely encourage people to check that out. Also, you can check out, you have a new special on YouTube called The Good Liars Fix America, maybe. I don't know. That could be it. It's your birthday.
We'll see.
Thank you so much for joining us. Big night. So I hope you get some rest.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
That does it for us today on Rising, but we will be back later tonight and then much, much later tonight to bring you the Hill's election coverage from about 7 p.m. on till midnight. You won't want to miss that. And then, of course, we'll be back here tomorrow to talk about the results. If we have them, we may not know, but we might. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any of our content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, you may do that as well. And we will see you later.